If you're working towards quite challenging goals and you're not sure, you're a bit scared and you're not sure how to execute them, particularly I know a lot of you working towards Paris-Brest Paris, which is imminent now. I hope you're quite excited to see how you get on. I hope the weather's good. It's certainly quite good here in the southern part of France. Anyway, given that, I thought it'd be worth talking about a bit about pacing and methods you can use to sort of get a feel for pacing, and also a bit about tiredness and fatigue. One of the techniques that I learned years ago, and I went on a course with Karen Dark in London about sports hypnosis and sports psychology, and in that was this mental rev counter or mental thermometer type technique. And the idea of that is that it's quite hard to judge pace, but if you look inside, you can sort of have a feel for what the right pace is. Most of you, after years of training, or months and months and miles, kilometres and kilometres, or hours and hours of training, you've got quite a good feel for what's too hard, what's not too hard, because you've probably gone too hard quite a few times, or you've probably finished training rides or training runs feeling, oh, I could have done that again, or I could have gone a lot faster for that, so I should have gone a little bit quicker and worked a bit harder. As a consequence, if you try and have these sort of analog scales, it adds a bit of objectivity to a subjective feeling, if that makes some sense. So if you use the rev counter, which is quite a good one, I quite like that one, you can sort of imagine the needle being in the green zone, which is, you're working pretty hard, but not too hard. If it can sort of go over the line into the red, and when sometimes if you feel your breathing get a bit hard, you're going into the sort of red zone, you need to back off a bit. But if you've always got this sort of mental picture of a thermometer, and whether you're in the green or the red, or a rev counter, I keep changing the terms, I know, or the red, and then below the green you might have a blue zone, which is an area you don't really want to go into unless you've overcooked it and you feel you need to recover. You should use a scale that works for you. It might be a thermometer, and you're too hot or too cold, and the bit in the middle is your perfect temperature or intensity. You might like a rev counter, you might like a speedometer, or you might just like a line, a slider on a line in your mind's eye. So what you can do now is try this method in your remaining training rides. Go a bit hard, see what that feels like. Go a bit too easy, see what that feels. Combine it with your heart rate data, your power data, and your RPE, and see how everything works together. And then when you get to the event, you've got another tool that you can use to judge your pace. It does work really well. I've used it myself, but so don't just dismiss it, give it a go. But you have to really practice these things to make them work properly. So don't just sort of pitch up on the start line and say, right, I'm going to use my pacing thermometer or my pacing rev counter, and it'll all work out fine. It might or it might not, but so practice it, test it, make sure it works for you, and then it's another tool in your toolbox. So the next one is, it's quite normal. You're probably going to have a bad patch, even if you do a really short event. You have these bad patches. It feels like you should stop or slow down, and you probably think, oh, well, what's the point? Why am I doing this? All sorts of negative self-talk might come into your mind. So two things: go through your what if, so that you've thought about all the things, or the negative self-talk that you might have, and have positive things to say. Well, I knew I was going to think like this. It's not real. It's just a sort of a feeling, an emotion, and I want to get to the end. I want to be successful in this event, and this is why this is a positive to dismiss the negative self-talk. I've done a video, I think, on self-talk, and the stop-clap method. I know I've done a video on that. And that's quite a good way of stopping negative self-talk. That it's normal to feel bad, and when that bad feeling comes, just keep following the process. If you run in, keep putting one foot in front of the other. If you have to walk, then walk for a bit. If you're cycling, keep turning the pedals. You can always make one more pedal stroke, and that takes you further along your course towards your ultimate goal, towards the finish. And also, probably because most bad patches go away, then towards a good patch. Connected to that, one of the things that came up in one of our workshops about techniques that people have used to keep going is that one of the people, she said she had a list of criteria that were acceptable reasons to stop. So, and if if she wanted to stop, but these criteria weren't met, then she didn't stop. She didn't have a reason to stop, so she decided, she'd made an upfront decision that if certain things happen, or she's having certain problems, then they're acceptable reasons to stop. But if those things aren't happening, then it's not acceptable to stop, and she should keep going, and then she would be likely to finish the event. I think that was the London to Brighton ultra distance race. So acceptable reasons might be, are you injured? Are you likely to cause some permanent damage to yourself? I mean, that's probably a good reason to stop, because it's not worth, I don't think anyway, it's not worth for most people carrying on and causing some permanent damage just to finish some physical challenge event when you've got years of your life to live with the consequences of this injury in the future. But there aren't many injuries that are like that. There aren't many things that are going to cause you some permanent damage that's not irreparable with time and recovery. So you have to be quite strict in this criterion. Are you so far outside the time limit that you're going to get disqualified, and you might be putting yourself in danger if you continue without the support of the organisation, without the trackers and things like that. So that would be another safety decision. So I think most of the acceptable reasons to stop are really safety decisions, rather than because you're feeling a bit tired, or you're feeling a lot tired, and you want to stop because your chimp's overtaken your motivation to carry on. Because one of the problems with endurance sport and endurance events is you can just stop. You're driving yourself on. If it's a fast race and you're racing against other people, you're pushing yourself to go faster. And if it's a long distance ultra endurance event, then you're pushing yourself to keep going in the face of discomfort. The fourth one is similarly connected in that, and good advice from one of the people that we've worked with for a good number of years. He's a very experienced Audax rider. And he says one of his rules of thumb is that don't abandon when you're tired and hungry. So what he does is, if he feels like he's going to have to abandon, he has a bit of a sleep, he has a break, gets something to eat, and then basically, if you I know we talked about Steve Peters' model, the chimp paradox. So when you're tired and hungry, your chimp's taken over, you're in an emotional state. And what you're trying to do is get back to some sort of objective state where what we might say your human side's taken over, and then you can make a rational decision as to whether it's sensible to carry on. Because sometimes if you stop and take a breather and get everything sorted, you feel a bit more comfortable, and you can make a much more considered decision and realise that actually things aren't that bad, and you can probably get to the end and finish your event and achieve your goal, and you feel so much better about success than you would about giving up. It's expected that something is going to go wrong, or something you're going to have challenges to deal with, and that to some extent is why you're taking part in endurance events. So the acronym AMP is accept that it's normal for things to go wrong, things to happen that you might not want to happen. And then M is move on with a plan. And that's the P, is the plan. So if you don't have a plan, then things are likely to go wrong again. So it's better to take this time. You can do that. Like if you're thinking of abandoning, you can use this thing. You should accept that we're going to have a bad patch in the event. It might be reach the point where you feel like you have to give up. Taking the parallel, I mentioned Scott Jurek. So he gives himself time to panic. So that's part of the acceptance process. He accepts that it's normal to panic if something goes wrong. If you fell off your bike, for instance, or you had a mechanical problem or something, you sort of panic because all your emotions take over. So it's accepting that it's normal for something to go wrong, or taking the time to panic, let your emotions calm down, and then start thinking about how to move on, what's your plan, how you're going to deal with it all, and then once you've rationalised it all, then move on with a plan. And having this AMP thing in your head might just get you over that glitch or that bad patch. So anyway, hopefully they're useful. A pacing thermometer, the fact you're going to get very tired, you're going to have bad patches, and accept, move on with a plan, might be three nice things to keep in your mind when you get to your big events. And then finally, I've just had a meeting. We have the athletes that I coach. We have a monthly chat, get together, evaluate the progress, refocus appropriately. And I was just chatting with Anna, and she pointed out that I could be a bit more clear about the fact that we do work with people on a one-to-one basis, and we also have a group which includes workshops and question and answer sessions and sort of group activities and training plan. Probably the most effective thing you can do to improve your performance in endurance sport is to get some professional help, and working with somebody one-to-one is probably the most effective way to do that. Most of the athletes that we work with improve significantly, well beyond their expectations, and also develop a healthy and sustainable relationship with their sport, their nutrition, and the enjoyment of their events. So sometimes it's better to save a bit, buy a cheaper bike and invest that on power meter and somebody to help you interpret that data, than it is to have a super fancy bike that's maybe not actually that comfortable and isn't really going to make you go any faster. So if you think we might be able to help you, then please get in touch. We have a holistic approach centered on you as a person based on communication, because even though you might feel that the training plan and the training is the most important thing, it's monitoring the training and managing fatigue and freshness and the effectiveness of various sessions, and consistency that is the most important. And by working with somebody to help you maintain that consistency, maintaining that motivation, and having a group of athletes like we have here at Endurance Bike and Run that meet every Monday evening for workshops, question and answer sessions, and sharing their successes and their failures, is a very motivating and effective environment to join to progress your fitness. So please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you and really love to work with you, whether you're a runner or a cyclist or combining the two. A lot of people combine running and cycling to good effect. It's a very nice and healthy way to build fitness. Hope to hear from you, and see you in the next video. Bye.